McDonald's presents Burger Reviews by Hamburglar. Today's review, the hotter, juicier classic burgers. Mr. Hamburglar. Robble, robble. He said, of all the McDonald's burgers I've ever hamburgled, these are the hottest, juiciest, and tastiest. Robble.
Hamburglary is on the rise. Get caught with a medium double cheeseburger meal for $6. Price and participation may vary. Promotion pricing may be lower than meal price. Comparison to prior classic burgers.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Hey everyone, quick heads up, there is some offensive language in this episode. So Tina, tell me how many frequent flyer miles you've racked up this year.
Well, I admittedly have used them. Some of them, we just took the whole family to Disney, but well over a few 100,000.
Tina Barton's job does not keep her in one place for very long. Tick off some of the places you're going to go in the next month or two.
So we are headed to South Carolina. We are headed to the New England states, Colorado. We're headed out to Colorado, Wyoming, Wisconsin.
Everywhere Tina lands, she is doing the same thing, getting elections officials in one room with law enforcement to create some kind of plan for November. Tina is a former Michigan city clerk. After 2020, she felt like she needed to do more than simply count votes in one corner of the country.
Like today, we were here in the Kansas City area. We had multiple federal partners in the room. We had DHS in the room. We had FBI election crime coordinators, FBI analysts in the room.
So interesting. I just wonder, you spent years as a city clerk. Were you ever meeting with like DHS and the FBI and the fire department all together in a room to plan for an election?
I had no idea that the FBI election crime coordinator position even existed. I didn't know what it was. And actually, we asked in the room today, in a room full of law enforcement, you know, how many of you know who your FBI election crime coordinator is, or did you know that that position existed? Only a few hands went up.
Tina wants to eliminate these kinds of blind spots because the people she meets keep explaining the ways their jobs are starting to feel more and more dangerous. I read about some of the election scenarios you dream up or plan for in your sessions, and they sound kind of wild to me. Like everything from threatening phone calls to an AI-generated robocall sent to poll workers telling them to stay home, fentanyl in the mail.
But are they really sensational? Because actually they're things that are already happening right now across the country. So in my mind, none of this is sensational.
At some point in your meetings, you play the voicemails you got, right?
Correct.
Saved message, Tuesday, 7:11 p.m.
Hi, Tina Barton. This is Pissed Off Patriots of America, 72 plus million of us, actually even more than that. We're watching your...
This is a message Tina got right after President Biden won the White House, when she was done counting votes.
And you frauded out America of a real election where Donald Trump blew your fucking lying ass out of the water. Guess what? You're going to pay for it. You will pay for it.
This message goes on for a minute and a half. It's filled with expletives and violence.
Even for election officials in the room, there's always this there's gasping or there's tears in their eyes because some of them have heard some of this same type of language used on them.
But Tina wants the rest of us to hear this, to understand what people like her are really facing.
You fucking cunt. Watch your fucking back, you fucking silly bitch. Watch your fucking back. You eyeballs, bitch.
End of message.
One voicemail can change your life forever.
Does it bother you to hear this voicemail again and again?
You know, I've heard it probably literally hundreds of times, and I can hear it one time and be okay with it, and I can play it another time and get really choked up about it.
Today on the show, an elections worker prepares for 2024. After facing down her own threats, she's not just preparing herself. She's rushing around the country to prepare everyone else. I'm Mary Harris. You're listening to What Next? Stick around. This episode is brought to you by Discover. When it comes to your finances, Discover wants you to know they are the credit card that is always there for you. With 24/7 U.S.-based live customer service, everyone has the option to talk to a real person anytime, day or night. Yep, that means no more waiting for, quote, normal business hours just to get a hold of someone. We are talking real service from real people whenever you need it. Get the customer service you deserve with Discover. Limitations apply. See terms at discover.com/creditcard. Can you tell me why you became an election worker in the first place? Like, you've said elections were your true love. Why?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think if you ask most election officials or people who work in elections, they'll tell you that they fell into it by chance. I don't know anybody who was like, when I grow up, I want to be the city clerk or I want to be the county clerk. I spent, a good part of my career, 32 years in government. And it was really the last 16 of that were geared towards elections. And we had a new elected township clerk. I was an ordinance officer in our community, so I knew all of our ordinances. I knew members of the community. And she said, I need a deputy clerk and I want you to do it. And so I told her, I don't really know what I'm bringing to the table for you. And she said, we're smart women, Tina. We will figure it out. And we did. And I've always been incredibly patriotic. And I love this country so much. I think on our worst day, we're still the best country in the entire world. And to me, this is one role that I can play that I know helps us continue to be that amazing country that we are, and hopefully a beacon of light to the rest of the world.
Did you just love the participation? The fact that people were coming in to vote and being civic minded?
Yeah, I love people. I do. Yeah, the civic mindedness of it. I love the election workers. They are so committed. And the average age of an election worker in Michigan is 74.
Huh.
It's amazing. And they too are incredibly patriotic and want to be part of the process. And it's something that's generational where you'll have people come in and they'll say, my mom was an election worker, but she can't do it anymore. So I feel like I should do it. And it's this way that I can give back to my country, the constituents, and just really feel good about the service of it.
You seem to sense trouble coming even before the 2020 election. When you wrote an op-ed for CNN, you quoted this 2019 speech you gave where you basically said, people are doubting our work and I'm worried about it. When did you first become worried?
I would actually probably go back to 2016. Again, I was a Michigan clerk at that time, and we were one of the states that Jill Stein filed a recount for the state, challenging the presidential election results. And that was the first time in my career where I'd ever seen something like that challenged on that scale.
Huh.
But I could just see this creeping in and people starting to doubt the process and to not believe it the way that they had in the past. I kept seeing this. I was looking at polls and surveys coming through. And so, in January 2019, I gave a speech on doubt and the proof. The only way that we could dispel doubt was to provide proof and, calling on us to be even more transparent than we already are.
You're a Republican, right?
I am.
Did you see this doubt issue as a problem of one party more than another, or just a generalized thing?
I think that it's really, it's come from all angles. We saw in Georgia that there was, doubt cast on the outcome in 2018, and then you have 2020. And so I think we've seen it from multiple angles from different parties. I don't think this is a partisan thing. I think that this has become just really a mindset in our culture.
So take me back to Election Day 2020. Like Election Day itself, like did you have a routine? Like you got a cup of coffee, you like reported at 6 a.m., whatever?
Your routine is you don't sleep the night before because you get home really late from getting all the prep work done. And then that morning, my alarm would usually go off around 3:30 in the morning. Would get to work, no later than 5 a.m. And just really you're kind of in troubleshoot mode all day long. We've got an absentee counting board that's going through processing absentee ballots. We're keeping our eye on 32 different precincts that have over 300 people, working at them, making sure everything goes smoothly there, answering any calls that might come of questions about where am I supposed to vote? How am I supposed to vote? People that are doing same day registration. I have a team that's handling that. So there are a lot of different moving parts on election day in different areas that you need to all run smoothly, and you're pretty much watching the operation all day and then in quick response mode if something needs your attention.
Eventually, you realized there'd been some kind of mistake that had gotten through from your team. How'd you realize that? Like, what happened?
At the end of election night, we're sending results to our county, and it didn't appear that the county had received one of our files where we had about 7 to 9 precincts on there. And running some reporting at about 1:30 in the morning, it was realized that the file name had been changed on the high-speed machine, and it should have been saved as an absentee file that was actually saved as a precinct file. And so we realized the error. We had to back it out, process all the ballots through again, and then save it correctly as an absentee file. It was discovered later that within 24 hours that there were actually 2 files out there with the same votes on them. So they had to back out one of the files.
So it could have been that votes were double counted.
Right. So it was the precinct file was sent twice, basically, for the absentees.
Oh, God. As the clerk, you must have been like, oh, no. Like, no.
Oh, every clerk is, oh, no. Right. I mean, clerks are type A perfectionists, and all they want to do is do the job and do it right. And you put hours and hours and hours into processes in making sure that everything goes perfectly. And it just, sometimes it doesn't. And so again, we were able to correct it within hours of discovering it, fix the problem. And at that point, the local press, the Detroit News, Detroit Free Press had all reported on it. It's Thursday afternoon at this point, and everything is taken care of. There's a canvassing period after Election Day that allows for mistakes to be corrected.
That's so interesting because it's like you anticipate there are going to be mistakes. We're going to need this grace period.
We're dealing with humans, right? When you're dealing with humans, things are going to happen. There are going to be mistakes made. That's what the canvassing period is. There is a time period in law that allows it to be fixed and corrected before it's certified.
How did the rest of the world find out about this error? I know that you said the Detroit News was there, but then Ronna McDaniel from the Republican National Committee, she put you on blast, right?
Yeah. So the Friday after that election, a press conference was held at the Oakland County Republican Party headquarters, which was the Republican headquarters for the group really that nominated me to be their candidate for Oakland County clerk. So it was filled with individuals who probably had voted for me, maybe had contributed to my campaign, had my signs in their yard. And she makes a statement in the press conference along the lines of,
just last night in Oakland County, we found 2,000 ballots that had been given to Democrats that were Republican ballots due to a clerical error. And this took place in Rochester Hills in Wayne County.
Yeah, I watched this press conference. You can literally hear people audibly gasping.
You can hear people gasp, right? Because she never says my name, but they know. They know where I'm the city clerk at that time. They know my name. They know who I am, where I work. So it was true shock in that moment for them to have that being said about me. The frustrating part of that was nobody ever contacted me from the county party, from the RNC to say, can you explain what happened here? There was no desire to reach out to me and find out what had happened and was there an explanation. It was just, like you said, put on blast. I also had members of the president at that time, his staff started tweeting about me.
President Trump's staff?
Correct.
Using your name?
Yes.
That must have scared you.
It's surreal, right? I mean, I'm a city clerk in a community of 75,000. I'm highly respected in my state amongst other clerks and, even known across the country for my election contributions. And to have that happen and to be so dedicated to the profession and to perfection, it was absolutely devastating to me personally and also professionally to feel that my people in my community might have thought that I let them down or that I did something wrong. I had to correct the record because I wanted the people of my community to know that you can feel confident in the way your the election was handled and how the ballots were processed.
Yeah, you posted your own video, right? Explaining things.
I did. I recorded a probably less than 2-minute video.
All ballots are and have been accounted for. There were no missing ballots. The accusation that 2,000 ballots were found is categorically false. As a Republican...
So I put the video out on Twitter, and within 72 hours, I had 1.2 million views of the video.
Were you going viral in a good way?
The positive side for me is always, did the public get the truth? And the public got the truth from me about what happened. The downside to that is, does it cause me to be put in a national spotlight even more? Yes. Yes, it did.
After the break, how that national spotlight would make Tina a target. A couple days after that press conference where Ronna McDaniel talked about what had happened in your clerk's office, you came into work and you checked your voicemail and you heard that tape of a guy threatening you and your family. Can you just take me back to that moment when you first heard it?
Yeah. So, walking into the office, one of the first things I would always do is fire up the computer, right? Because you're getting ready to check emails. And then I'll look at the phone to see if the light's flashing, if I had voicemails. And so I sat down on that Tuesday morning to check my voicemails because the light was flashing. And this voicemail from Andrew Nichols was on my voicemail there in the office, saying horrible things, calling me horrible names, threatening me and my family.
Did you recognize the voice?
No, I didn't recognize the voice. I didn't know who it was. Frankly, I didn't know who it was for 3 years.
Huh.
So it was 3 years of living with not knowing who put that voicemail on my phone, whether it was somebody local, whether it was somebody who I passed in the grocery store, somebody who knew me from something. Again, I had ran for office, so I had visibility as far as my face goes. Is it somebody who's intentionally going to seek me out? Are they, all these things, all these questions that run through your mind in that moment of, does this person intend to make good on this? And can I ever really relax because they say when you least expect it? And I think that that's part of what, lends to this state of hypervigilance, if you will, is because there's this, am I going to allow myself to be in a when you least expect it moment?
You said you didn't know who he was, this person's identity, until 3 years later. Andrew Nichols, the man who we now know left this voicemail He pled guilty to doing it. He's going to be sentenced in July.
Right, July 9th.
Are you going to be at Andrew Nichols' sentencing?
Oh, absolutely. I'm working on my victim impact statement now.
What do you want him to know?
Certainly want him to know that, and I want the judge to know and everybody in that room to know that his decision to make that call on that day and say those words might have been a moment in time for him, but it's a moment of a lifetime for me. There's a mental part of this for a victim that they never get to walk away from. But what I would like to say, too, is that while, yes, it's like I live in a state of hypervigilance, I admit that, all those things, his threat to me did not cause me to back down. If anything, it fueled a fire in me to make sure that anybody who finds themselves in the position that I was in feels that they have the ability to respond in the situation, that they are resilient enough to deal with it. All it's done is make me better at what I do. So I win. I win in this, and every election official in this country wins.
Your organization now is called the Committee for Safe and Secure Elections. You're traveling around trying to prepare workers for 2024, connecting them with law enforcement, helping them make a plan. When you arrive in a new place, what's the first thing you do?
When we arrive in a new city, we often familiarize ourselves prior to going to a city or county or even state with, election laws, as well as even their laws when it comes to things like whether they're an open carry state, that sort of thing. But also for me in particular, I'm fortunate to often travel with a member of law enforcement who's one of our teammates on the Committee for Safe and Secure Elections. But the times that I do travel alone, I'm obviously kind of scoping out where I'm going to be ahead of time, looking at maps and areas around there, making sure I'm in a safe location.
Hold it. I didn't actually think that would be what you would be doing, like thinking about your safety at all times. Like the two things you need to know are like, what are the election laws and is this an open carry state?
Yeah, that's prep work that we're doing ahead of time, but it's also about personal safety, making sure that wherever I'm going, that I feel safe.
When you talk to election workers all over the country, what are they telling you? What is most striking to you about what they're telling you?
Well, I think, some of it is, it doesn't matter what state they live in, or it doesn't matter the size of their community or their county that they're working in, or whether they're operating at a state level, county level, local level. It doesn't matter. What they're all facing is the same. There's a common problem, and that's a dehumanization of their profession and an attack on their profession.
How are they seeing it? Like, what are the stories that stick with you?
Specifically, I had one of the election officials recently tell me, she's like, I probably take 10 calls a day where someone yells at me on the phone, and it has nothing to do with our community. They're mad at government. They're mad at elections. They're mad at the country right now. They're mad at the president, and they're taking that out on this local level because, again, this dehumanization of election officials has taken place. And, that's no longer like Tina Barton, somebody they go to church with, or somebody that their kids play soccer together, or somebody that they're part of the same book club, or somebody, that they know through the community. It's that person is a representation of what they are mad about, and that's government and elections.
It's interesting. In some ways, I wonder if you feel lucky because you had this awful experience that's made you hypervigilant and changed your life. But you know who called you, and they're being punished. Because it's just interesting to compare, for instance, what happened to you to what happened with someone like Ruby Freeman in Georgia, who, of course, testified before the January 6th committee. She was held up as an example of a bad actor by some prominent Republicans. She received a ton of threats. I think the New York Times had 400 threats against her, but only one resulted in a prosecution.
Yeah, I do feel lucky that Andrew Nichols has been charged and will be sentenced very soon. Like I said, that's a win for me, but it's also a win for the entire elections community, for them to see that someone was held accountable. When you look at the numbers as high as almost 40% have been threatened, harassed, or abused, the challenge is that are these being reported? And then if they are being reported, are they reaching a threshold that law enforcement feels is actionable, that the prosecutor will actually prosecute for? And that, as it goes through that filter, is not always reaching the point where it brings somebody in and holds them accountable. And so there's a lot of frustration with that.
The Biden administration created a task force in 2021 to help local officials deal with threats to election workers. Do you think it's made a difference?
I think that there has been a real combined effort through multiple organizations and even federal partners, all the way down to state partners and locals, of everyone recognizing this is a moment that no one group is going to fix. No one task force is going to fix this problem. But it takes all of us. And I think that everyone's doing the best that they can. And that's really what the focus is. And I think everybody is doing what they can in the moment to help them be prepared and make sure that it's a safe, secure election cycle.
Tina, I'm really grateful for your time. Thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you.
Tina Barton is a senior elections expert at the Elections Group. And that's our show. What Next is produced by Paige Osborne, Elena Schwartz, Rob Gunther, Madeline Ducharme, and Anna Phillips. We are led by Alicia Montgomery with a little boost from Susan Matthews. Ben Richmond is the Senior Director of Podcast Operations here at Slate. And I'm Mary Harris. Thanks for listening. Catch you back here next time.
This is the story of the one. As a maintenance engineer, he hears things differently. To the untrained ear, everything on his shop floor might sound fine, but he can hear gears grinding or a belt slipping. So he steps in to fix the problem at hand before it gets out of hand. And he knows Grainger's got the right product he needs to get the job done, which is music to his ears. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.